Hi, it's John Cunningham
Andrew Lutzy.
from Cunninghams. We're here today just to, I suppose, throw a little bit of debunks into the marketplace, add a little bit of commentary in what we're seeing right now, what's happening in the marketplace, just so that people understand there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of fear, but the reality, Andrew, is property selling.
Yes, and property selling well. Most people probably recognise that the market has softened, and it has, no doubt. But there's still a willingness and a desire for lots of people to make a move.
Yeah.
And there's, at the moment, while stock levels are probably lower than they have been historically, there's still an abundance of property out there. So people have got choice, which is almost a relief for most buyers now more than ever. And we're now having buyers coming up and saying to us at the open houses, God, what a great time to buy, because there's actually 50% auction clearance rates. I'd hate to be buying in the market when you've got an 80% auction clearance rate. And that's almost the big irony of what the sentiment of the market is today.
It is, isn't it? Because you look at the economic conditions and they're incredibly favourable to be involved in the property market.
Yeah.
We've got the lowest unemployment rates we've seen in a hell of a long time, the lowest interest rates in recorded history. And therefore, the only thing that seems to be upsetting the apple cart is APRA's requirements on lending. That's making it harder for people to borrow.
Yep.
The Banking Royal Commission's made the banks scared, and we've got political upheaval on both state and federal politics. It sort of tends to put people into a fear zone who actually aren't reading the market. The market's come off the boil.
Yeah.
It's a great time to buy.
And it stops the decision-making process.
Yeah, exactly.
And the funny thing about that is that when the market goes through this transition period where we have a softening of prices, and it is a gradual one. It's not like we're seeing things like in the US where we get cut after cut after cut and people, sort of lose confidence in the market.
Yeah.
People are still buying and selling property. Last month was a great example of that. We sold over 20 properties, all at great prices. And at the moment we've got great stock levels and it looks like it's going to be another bumper month of sales. So I don't think you're going to see anything change, drastically anytime soon. But what we will see is there's only 5 real selling Saturdays left till Christmas.
It's diminishing, isn't it? So look, there's good stock in the market, as you say. There's people who are now, I think, realising the smart money is going into selling first before buying. Look, our advice for what it's worth is at the moment, sell first. Know what you've got, because there is a lot of disinformation in terms of where values sit, and the reality is we've come off maybe 10, even 15%, I suppose, from the peak.
In some cases, yeah.
Interesting stat I pulled out the other day is if you go back 10 years and look at what the market growth has been, it only comes out at about between 4.5, 4.8% average per annum.
Right.
So this whole concept of this massive boom of 60%, when you actually look at it in context, the reality is quite different. So it really shows that we've made affordability a positive thing. We're actually at a point where the market should be. In fact, I'll probably get your thoughts on this. I see we're probably back to the values of 2015, 2016.
Yeah, and actually it's funny you mentioned that. We've had a lot of that commentary, particularly around when we're at the pointy end of a lot of deals, and most people, have a desire, most buyers have a desire that I like this property, but I can't buy it because somehow, back in my mind, I don't want to be buying a property where I feel like the values are going lower. And they don't realise that actually you're buying pricing now that's back at those levels, 2015, 2016. So the astute people at the moment are making positive decisions because it suits their lifestyle, their needs. I've got a willingness to move, John. I'm too small where we are. This house sits that. Why wouldn't you make that decision?
And that's the fundamental reason why people do this, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so nothing's changed.
Yeah.
So I think the conditions are right, and our advice moving forward to 2019 is it's a really stable time. We're going to stay in these value points for probably another year or two, I imagine, which is what happens after every boom. So it's smart to actually get involved. You actually have needs and desires that you need to meet, and the relativity of the market is when you buy and sell in the same market, it doesn't matter what it was worth 12 months ago or 2 years ago, or what it's going to be worth in 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
It's relative to buying and selling in the same market. For first home buyers, now's the time. Don't wait for the lemmings to keep running towards the cliff while the market takes off. Now's the time to do it. And if we're here anytime for advice, the whole team is really happy to actually give you some great advice on where the market is right now, because it is important to understand and actually get that information so you can make great decisions. So, Andrew?
2019, there's a lot of hoopla around, okay, well, I'm going to wait till next year to buy, or I'm going to wait next year to sell. What do you think from a macro point of view, particularly with the state election coming up? Do you think that'll play in?
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting. When we tend to also get that honeymoon period at the beginning of the year when people come back into the market, don't they? Yeah. It's like they've been sitting on the fence all through this later part of the year saying, it's too hard, I'll wait and see what happens. And they all enter the market at the same time.
Everyone comes back and you get a bit of a flurry.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting time because we call that honeymoon period, that term for a reason, because typically you get very low levels of stock.
Yeah.
But you've got two very distinct types of buyers. There's everyone who's missed out the year before.
Yeah.
Who says, right, I'm a bit exhausted of going to open houses every Saturday. It's great seeing agents every day, and I appreciate the people who do come out and keep us company. But realistically, we know you want to buy something. So their motivation is typically peaked a bit further.
Yeah.
And then you've got the new part of the market who've decided, yep, this is going to be our year. We're going to jump back in. It seems like a good time to buy because prices have softened. And that really creates, again, a bit of a bubble of competition.
Yeah.
And then that starts to dissipate as any supply and demand basic economic formula would, as more stock comes to market. And we know unequivocally that the peak periods where you're going to find the most choice as a buyer is always going to be around March and probably November, where we are right now. And so I think you're going to see this little flurry of activity probably spike, both in terms of values and in terms of buy levels. Probably January, February, that will slowly wane away, and then after that first quarter, I think that's when we're really going to see the interesting times, whether we're going to stay at the status quo where we are this year, of being a fairly stable market, slightly declining, as time goes on, or whether we'll see some new outcomes based on the election.
Yeah, look, elections are interesting times because they are sort of that uncertain period. But interesting enough, when you've got that basic economic conditions of low unemployment, low interest rates, it tends to trump it all. So I'm seeing a little bit of this through the year. Yeah. But ultimately, I think we'll get to the end of 2019 and we'll go, pretty much hasn't changed, which is great. I think it's the best time to buy and sell because you're not having this fear of the market running down or running up. Get involved now because it's a stable period, even though it doesn't appear stable.
Yeah, and I think the outlook that most people say, the property market around here always grows, and we're going to take things to the next level in terms of pricing. I mean, that will happen, but unfortunately, we are on the other side of the bell curve. Yeah. There's still probably a little bit of softening to come. Whether that's only 1 or 2%, or whether it's 5%, we don't know. No one's got a magic wand except for Harry Potter. But I think at the moment, we can guarantee that probably we're going to see relatively stable conditions over the next 6 months at least, because we're going to come out of this year knowing where the market is. We're going to start next year fairly well knowing what's going to be presented in front of us, and then after that, well, then it's in the
polish
hands.
The crystal ball in the new year.
Yeah.
So thanks everyone for viewing. Hopefully you get some great information out of that. And I know we've rambled on a bit, but hopefully it's all been of value. And we'll talk to you soon.
See you later. Thanks.